The Admiral's laughter echoed through the vast steel halls of the naval base cafeteria. "Hey, you there, janitor," he called out with a playful grin, his voice carrying authority and ease. The man in the blue uniform paused, his mop dripping water onto the floor. He was older, mid-40s perhaps, his hair graying near the temples, his posture calm but disciplined. The Admiral smirked, gesturing toward his officers. "Tell me, son, what's your kill count?" The room erupted in laughter. A few junior officers shook their heads, whispering jokes under their breath. The janitor didn't respond immediately. He slowly straightened, his eyes meeting the Admiral's, not with fear, not with disrespect, but with a quiet heaviness that silenced the laughter around him. 73 confirmed, he said softly. "And I pray every night I never have to add to that number again." The entire cafeteria froze. Even the Admiral's smirk vanished. Nobody knew that the janitor, Tom Hayes, had once been one of the Navy's most decorated special operations snipers. A legend among ghosts. A man whose name was whispered in the dark corners of briefing rooms. But after the accident that took his wife, and nearly took his son, Tom walked away from it all. He hung up his medals, packed his uniforms into a single box, and took a job cleaning the very floors of the institution he once defended, just so he could be near the world he gave everything to, without ever stepping back into it. But this wasn't a story about glory, it was a story about redemption. That evening, after the cafeteria incident, word spread like wildfire through the base. Recruits whispered about the janitor sniper, and even the Admiral found himself haunted by that calm, heavy voice. He decided to investigate, and what he found left him speechless. Tom Hayes, formerly Chief Petty Officer of SEAL Team 7, call sign, Spectre. 3 deployments, 2 silver stars, and a record that even the Admiral himself couldn't boast. But what struck him most was not the record, it was what came after. Tom had retired early, refusing all offers of promotion. He'd chosen instead to raise his son, Danny, after losing his wife in a car crash while he was overseas. The guilt had broken him. Cleaning floors was his way of staying close to the world he once knew, while never picking up a rifle again. Days passed, but fate has a way of testing those who try to hide from their calling. One cold morning, alarms shattered the silence of the base. A live threat alert, an unidentified vessel breaching the harbor perimeter. Communications were jammed, and the security system malfunctioned. The base scrambled, but something wasn't right. The young technicians panicked, the officers barked orders, and amidst the chaos, it was the janitor, Tom Hayes, who calmly stepped forward. "Admiral," he said, his voice steady. "Permission to access the command systems." The Admiral hesitated only a moment before nodding. Within seconds, Tom's fingers moved over the control panel like a man who had never left. He rerouted the comms, bypassed the security block, and opened a direct visual feed of the breach. What they saw made everyone's blood run cold, an armed speedboat loaded with explosives heading straight for the base fuel depot. Without hesitation, Tom radioed the control tower. "This is Spectre," he said, using the call sign that hadn't been spoken in years. "Lock coordinates 27 Alpha. I'll take the shot." The Admiral's eyes widened. "You can't. We don't even have a designated sniper." "I'm not asking, sir," Tom replied, his voice calm, resolute. Minutes later, he stood at the top of the observation deck, wind tearing through his uniform. He hadn't held a rifle since the day he buried his wife, but the muscle memory was there, the breath control, the focus, the heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the world. He adjusted for wind, distance, and movement. The target was small, barely visible through the morning haze, but his hands were steady. One shot. The explosion tore through the sky, lighting the horizon like sunrise. The base shook, alarms wailed, and men cheered. The threat was gone. Tom lowered the rifle slowly. For the first time in years, he felt something other than guilt. He felt purpose again. When he returned to the command deck, the Admiral stood waiting. He didn't salute, he didn't need to. Instead, the Admiral extended his hand. "You just saved every soul on this base," he said quietly. "You don't belong behind a mop, Hayes." Tom smiled faintly. "Maybe not," he replied. "But it reminds me to stay humble. Keeps me close to the ground." That day, the entire base learned something they'd forgotten. The measure of a man isn't his rank or his medals. It's his heart. Later that evening, Tom sat by the dock with his son, Danny, watching the sunset bleed across the waves. Danny leaned against him and whispered, "Dad, they're all talking about you. You were a hero again." Tom looked out at the water, a tear slipping down his cheek. "No, son," he said softly. "A hero is someone who learns when to fight, and when to stop." The video would fade here, the waves, the sunset, the quiet of redemption, and then a voiceover. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories of courage, redemption, and the heroes who walk among us. Because sometimes, the strongest warriors aren't in uniform, they're the ones who've already laid theirs down.